Tom saw John entering the bar and smiled when he saw his friend. Tom hoped John would stop by despite the early evening and the fact that the bar was pretty empty. It had been a few weeks since they had gotten together. John had been busy with something going on in his life and had become unavailable. Tom had tried calling and emailing, but he had no luck getting through to his friend, and he was really concerned. He even tried to stop by John's home and office, but John never seemed to be home. Tom really hoped that John's problems were solved, but the angry look on John's face told Tom that this was far from the case. Tom stood up to shake his hand, but suddenly collapsed to the ground from John's vicious right cross to the jaw. Tom's head bounced off a nearby table as he fell to the floor. "What the fuck?" muttered a stunned Tom, spitting out a bloody tooth. John stood over him preparing to hit him again. "You fucking bastard. You knew. You and your bitch of a wife have been laughing at me all this time because you fucking knew. I bet you both took great pleasure in how much of a sucker I was." The rapid swelling of his jaw and the numbness of what was likely a concussion was making it hard for Tom to concentrate. Tom didn't understand anything his friend was saying as none of it made sense to him. The only word that escaped Tom's lips was a flurry of blows to Tom's ribs and legs followed. John shouted, "I'm sure it was a hell of a lot of fun that you hung out with me just so she could go out. Hey, buddy. Let's go to my father-in-law's cabin for the weekend. Hey, buddy, Emily got us tickets to that concert you've been dying to see, which will only be 3 hours away, so we need to stay the night." Any bullshit excuse to get me out of the house and out of this neighborhood so she could hook up. I should have seen this coming, but I never thought you would do this to me. I have no idea what I did to make you hate me so much to help her cheat on me, but you are not only a shitty person, but a shitty friend. By this time, several bar patrons had grabbed John and started pulling him back. Tom stared at his friend, stunned by the blows and puzzled by his friend's actions and words, not well understanding what had happened. The bartender had called the police as soon as the first blow was thrown, and luckily, a patrol car was nearby. The ambulance took much longer to arrive. So while John was being detained and put into the patrol car, Tom struggled to get to his feet with the help of some strangers. The ambulance crew quickly examined Tom and placed him on a gurney, strapping him down tightly for transport to the emergency room. Tom passed out before the ambulance even left the parking lot to the lulling wail of the siren. It all seemed like a short bad dream to Tom. When he slowly opened his eyes and woke up, he quickly realized he was in a hospital. He saw cars and a normal standard hospital room with medical equipment and a 20-year-old TV. It wasn't a nightmare. It was real. As he began to regain consciousness, Tom's wife, Emily, walked in with tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, baby. I wanted to be here when you woke up, but I came out to call your parents and tell them you're okay. How are you feeling?" Tom pulled himself up a little on the bed and tried to gather his thoughts a little about what had happened when Emily sat down next to him and took his hand. The sleep and medication had taken the swelling down a bit, so at least his words could be understood. "I don't know what happened. I've never seen him like this before. He said something about Amanda cheating on him and that we were helping her, that we were the cause of it." His words didn't make any sense. Emily's tears continued to drip as Tom continued. "I may have heard wrong, but he seemed to think that he and I were taking these trips just so that Amanda could cheat on him. That's crazy. Why would he think something so crazy?" When Tom was silent for a moment, he looked at Emily. Lowering her head, she whispered that she was sorry. "I don't know what you're apologizing for. He was the one who hit me. And he had this crazy idea that we were helping her cheat. It sounds so stupid. Why would he think we would help her do something so harmful? What kind of horrible people would do that to someone they cared about?" Tom looked at Emily as she looked up. Something was wrong with the way she was acting. Maybe he was out of his mind, but her behavior was really suspicious, and she was usually active in voicing her opinions, especially about her relationships with close friends. She might have been shocked by the situation as it was not something that could be imagined. Just as he was about to ask her what was going on, The doctor walked in and said his jaw wasn't broken or dislocated, just bruised. If Tom didn't have a headache, he would be allowed to leave tonight with Emily. Tom's head hurt, but there was clearly something wrong with Emily, so he dutifully lied to the doctor that he felt fine so he could leave. Time passed. The nurses were dutifully working on paperwork, so Tom didn't get a chance to ask Emily what was going on, but it was hoped that she would tell him everything at home. Both were silent on the way home while Emily drove. They didn't even turn on music, they just stayed silent the whole way. Tom needed answers, but by the time he got home, he was exhausted and just wanted to sleep. A quick change of clothes and Tom was exhausted and fell asleep. Emily curled up next to him, hugging him tightly with all her might. After his shower, Tom walked down the stairs and joined Emily in the kitchen. He was still sore, but at least his head was clearer. Emily was already sitting at the table drinking her coffee, but when Tom joined her, he could see that she was deep in thought. Emily finally realized that Tom was in the room. She asked, "How are you feeling right now?" "Good, but I have a bit of a headache and everything is sore. A day of rest, and I'll be fine. I still can't figure out what made John go so crazy." Taking a sip, Tom continued. "Did Amanda say anything to you? Have you talked to her since yesterday to find out what happened to him?" "I did talk to her a little bit yesterday. She was as shocked as I was that he could have done something like that to you." Tom looked at his wife as she spoke. It seemed like a measured and careful answer, but there was something else. She seemed sad, which was inappropriate because it was the exact opposite of her usually bright personality. She was reserved. He thought that maybe she was just shaken up by the attack and that it had affected her more than he had first thought. Reaching out, he took her hands in his. "It's okay, honey. I'm okay. I'm coming around." His shirt was soon wet from the flow of her tears. They embraced with the words "I love you," holding each other tightly. They both called in sick to work and spent the day at home. Tom didn't know what it was exactly, but something besides the physical pain was bothering him. Nothing about it all seemed to make any sense. John's attack out of the blue, using him and Emily, of helping Amanda cheat. Emily was suddenly timid and reserved. Her measured answers to basic questions. He wanted to press her again about her phone conversation with Amanda, but Emily was on the verge of tears, and he figured now wasn't the best time for a showdown. Even though they were both staying home, they seemed to be keeping their distance. Tom sat in the backyard, watched the wind sway the trees and grass, and needed to figure out why John had attacked him. They had been friends for a long time, and Tom had never seen John lose his temper without a good reason. Tom thought about his wife's words and couldn't recall her ever saying that John's wife hadn't cheated on him, only telling Emily that they were sorry for attacking Tom. We need to get John's perspective on this story, and the best way to find out is from John himself. While there was a risk that John might attack him again, it seemed like the most direct way to establish a basic understanding of what happened. Tom then sits down with Emily to talk about their role in what happened, and what made John think that Emily and Tom were betraying him. Emily told Tom that she would stop by work briefly to pick up her laptops and she would be home for the rest of the week and didn't want to get too far behind her schedule. After she left, Tom decided to take a chance and visit John. On the way to John's house, Tom tried calling John to no avail. Tom hoped that John was already out of jail, so he took a cab to John's house. If Tom was lucky, John would be there so they could figure out what had caused this mess and get back to normal. At the entrance to John's house, Tom's stomach clenched when he saw Emily's car in the driveway. Instead of ringing the front doorbell, Tom walked to the back of the house until he was near an open window near the kitchen. He stopped when he heard Emily talking to Amanda. Emily wasn't quiet now. She was clearly pissed off. "John overheard me talking about getting a date and that you would cover for me." He overheard a conversation that was clearly not meant for him. "So how does that explain why he attacked Tom?" "John heard me say that you'd cover for me and that Tom and John would be busy so I could go out without raising John's suspicions. He must have taken that to mean that Tom knew what was going on. I would have warned you if I had known, But it wasn't until after the attack on Tom that I realized John knew. John is beyond angry. He even used his phone call from prison to tell me how much he hated me and that he would rather rot in prison than live with me any longer, along with all the other mean and hurtful words he could think of. Emily wanted to sympathize with her friend, but after all, Amanda was the one who had dumped John. Emily's stupidity in helping Amanda had already caused some serious problems in her own marriage, and things could get worse when Tom found out. She knew it was wrong to help a cheating woman, but they were close friends with Amanda, and she had hoped that she would be satisfied with a brief affair or two and become a good wife to John again. Instead, Emily's support led to the worst, and now Emily will have to deal with the consequences for her own marriage because of Amanda's failure to keep her feet together. I know you have your own problems, but so do I. Once Tom finds out what happened, my marriage is going to be in serious trouble. Why would your marriage be in trouble? It's not like you've been out and Tom and John have been having fun. Tom knows you never cheated on him. If I have to, I'll tell him you never did. Tom couldn't see it, of course, but he realized from the tone of Emily's voice that she closed her eyes and rubbed her forehead as she spoke. You really don't understand anything. I lied to him. I helped you screw over his best friend. I'm the reason his best friend attacked him. Do you really think he's gonna believe a word I say to him? And as for your help, you're the only person in this case he's going to hate even more than me. So do you really think he's going to listen to anything you say and believe a liar like you? But you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't cheat. He needs to know that. It doesn't matter. I have no idea how to fix it, and if I don't have a solution by the time Tom finds out, my marriage will probably end just like your marriage did. I can't believe what a fool I was to help you. If I lose him, I'll never speak to you again. But you've always been a loving wife. He knows how much you love him. Yes. Of course, he does. I'm such a loving wife that my support of my slutty friend resulted in my husband getting his ass kicked by his best friend. You really don't realize how stupid you are. Do you think he'll trust me now? At best, it'll be years before he trusts me again. Tom had heard enough and calmly walked back outside. Tom's resilient nature allowed him to remain calm and focused on the task at hand. As he waited for a cab, he realized that he needed to start making things right, but first he needed to make sure he had all the facts. It was time to visit a friend. To say the duty sergeant and detectives were confused would be an understatement, but after years of dealing with strange occurrences and police work, they just shrugged when Tom said he wanted to pay bail. They smirked at the look on John's face when he saw Tom pull him out and laughed openly when Tom told John to shut up until he was told to talk. An embarrassed John followed Tom and got into the car in silence. After Tom gave the address to the driver, they sat in silence until they arrived at the scene. The same bartender was on duty. He was nervous and obviously fearful of trouble, but Tom quickly calmed him down by asking for a bottle of Glenmorangie Signet, 2 glasses, and to be left alone as they moved to a corner booth. Tom poured a hefty portion into both glasses and slid it to John. They both drank and exchanged the words "fuck you" as a toast to the first sip. Tom looked at his friend. I didn't know about this setup. I just wanted to hang out and have a good time with you, and they used our friendship against you. They knew I would never agree to it, so they ran their bullshit scheme without me. John looked at his friend carefully. They'd known each other for so long that he could always tell when Tom was bullshitting, so it was clear from the look on his face that Tom was being honest now. When the initial anger passed and he cooled down in prison, John was able to think rationally, or at least rational about what Tom had told him. She ripped my heart out and your wife helped her. I gave everything I had, and it was a waste of time because she chose to go after some asshole. Tom refilled his drinks again and just listened to his friend, while John expressed his frustration and anger about his marriage. When the whiskey and verbalization of the event finally calmed John down, he was able to apologize for the attack. I probably should have talked to you first, but I couldn't help myself. The news that my marriage and our friendship with you was over made me lose control. As much as it killed me that she was a walking wench, the thought of you stabbing me in the back was even worse. Cheating is bad enough, but the thought of you laughing at me hurt even more. I'm really sorry, Tom smirked, sipping his whiskey. It's okay. I probably deserved it for sleeping with your sister sometime during Christmas vacation. How did you know she was cheating? John shook his head. Very stupidly, a few weeks ago, I thought there was something wrong in my so I started to drift apart. Eventually, I came to the conclusion that she must be cheating, so I was getting ready to hire a private investigator, but while I was at work, my phone started showing video and audio from the Ring camera on the front porch. Her motion sensor went off as Amanda was picking up an Amazon package she had ordered, talking on the phone and making an appointment to cheat on me. She said you and Emily would be able to help her just like before. It wasn't like you didn't know what was going on. It sounded like you were actively participating in the deception. Tom stared at him, not believing his eyes. 2 marriages had died because one slut couldn't close her legs and forgot about the camera. So Emily was cheating too. I hadn't thought about it, but it makes sense that she'd be doing the same thing she covered up my whore for. In fact, I'm almost convinced Emily wasn't cheating. I heard them talking before they picked you up, and that convinced me that she wasn't walking around. So if she wasn't cheating, why do you want a divorce? Maybe it would be easier to forgive her if she was sleeping with someone else. What happened is even worse for me. The problem isn't the cheating. It's the trust. Not only has she repeatedly lied to me about her actions and your wife, but she has used our friendship to cover it up in the most evil way possible and make me an active participant in the deception. How can I stay married to her if I can no longer trust her and my best friend hates her? Trust can be rebuilt. I don't trust my wife at all, but Emily loves you. Are you sure this is the end? I think so. Trust glued together by time isn't stronger. It's weaker. People can forgive, but they never forget. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life hoping that years from now, this will be just a faded memory. She knew what she was doing, and there is nothing she can say to fix this problem. It's time for me to leave and start over. John envied his friend. Despite all this, you'll have an amicable divorce and you'll both remain on good terms. I, on the other hand, will be trying to figure out which Mexican brothel rents out whores so I can get Amanda the right job for her skill set and pay less alimony. I am in awe of your ability to just see life for what it is. You determined your path and just live your life. Tom laughed. It seemed like his world was coming to an end, but he knew he would be okay in the long run. He went home and talked to Emily, but since she already knew what was going to happen, things were likely to be relatively conflict-free. She cried and begged for counseling, but knew he couldn't put up with her behavior. It was out of character for him and she knew it. It was time for him to choose a new direction and look at his life with fresh eyes because the chapter in his marriage to Emily was over.